Hi, Theo and Charlie. I'm going to read this book to you today. This is a book from my family when I was a little girl. It's called The Little House, and it's by Virginia Lee Burton. I really like just even when you first open it, and you can kind of see like the pictures right inside when you first open it. I think those are really fun pictures. The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton. Once upon a time, there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house, and she was strong and well built. The man who built her so well said, "This little house shall never be sold for gold or silver, and she will live to see our great-great-grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren living in her." And here's a picture of the little house. Maybe this is the man who built her, you think? The little house was very happy as she sat on a hill and watched the countryside around her. She watched the sun rise in the morning, and she watched the sun set in the evening. Day followed day, each one a little different from one before. But the little house stayed just the same. And there you can see how the sun comes up and goes down, and there's the little hill that she lives on. It looks like she's got some animals right over here. Maybe she has a little farm. And there's water over here. It's a really pretty place the little house is at, isn't it? In the nights, she watched the moon grow from the thin new moon to a full moon, and then back again to a thin old moon. And when there was no moon, she watched the stars. Way off in the distance, she could see the lights of the city. The little house was curious about the city and wondered what it would be like to live there. You can see, here she is. She's looking at the stars up in the sky. It's nighttime. Maybe these are the stars from this, or these are the lights from the city, you think? I don't know. They look like stars to me, but yep, they're stars. I don't see the lights from the city in that picture. There's the calendar showing the moons going from the small little moon to the big moon to the little small moon. Time passed quickly for the little house as she watched the countryside slowly change with the seasons. In the spring, when the days grew longer and the sun warmer, she waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green. She watched the buds on the trees swell and the apple trees burst into blossom. She watched the children playing in the brook. And here she is. Let's see. Yep, there's trees that are coming out with the blooms. This is like in the winter and the fall, the spring. You see all the little animals around the little house. Let's see. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves. And the white daisies cover the hills. She watched the gardens grow, and she watched the apples turn red and ripen. She watched the children swimming in the pool. Let's see. I can see the children swimming in the pool. Can you see them swimming in the pool? And I guess all these those are like all the daisies growing on her field. The animals are getting bigger now in the summertime. In the fall, when the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she watched the first frost turn the leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apples picked, and she watched the children going back to school. There she is. You see, the kids are going back to school. Here they are right here. But see, they're going to ride a wagon. They don't have a bus yet. And then the animals, and see how all the trees are orange and yellow and red, golden for the fall. And there's apples on the apple trees. In the winter, when the nights were long and the days short, and the countryside covered with snow, she watched the children coasting and skating. Year followed year. The apple trees grew old and new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city. And now at night, the lights of the city seemed brighter and closer. So here's the winter. See how different it looks in the winter? They're making snowmen. There's snow on the ground. They're playing with their ice skates down here on the pond. And there they are doing sleigh rides down the hill. One day the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage. What's a horseless carriage? Do you know what that means? A car is coming down the winding country road. Pretty soon there were more of them on the road and fewer carriages pulled by horses. Pretty soon along came some surveyors and surveyed a line in front of the little house. Pretty soon along came a steam shovel and dug a road through the hill covered with daisies. And then trucks came and dumped big stones on the road. And then some trucks came with little stones. And finally a steamroller came and rolled it all smooth. And the road was done. Here they are, see? There's the trucks with the stones and the little stones, the steamroller. They're getting pretty close to the little house, aren't they? Now the little house watched the trucks and automobiles going back and forth to the city. Gasoline stations, roadside stands, and small houses followed the new road. Everyone and everything moved much faster now than they did before. They are. See, there's the gas station. See all the trucks and cars? And look, now they have telephone poles. And they have fences. And look how much closer the city is. See all the houses up here? Before those were farms, remember? Oops, I could turn 2 pages. There we go. More roads were made and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses. Apartment houses and tenement houses. Schools, stores, and garages spread all over the land. And they crowded the little house. No one wanted to live in her and take care of her anymore. She couldn't be sold for gold or silver. So she just stayed there and watched. Look at the little house, surrounded by all those big buildings and surrounded by cars. Looks a lot different, doesn't it? Now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. Now the lights of the city were bright and very close, and the lights shone all night. This must be what it's like living in the city, thought the little house, and didn't know whether she liked it or not. She missed the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. Here she is at night. It's a whole lot different, isn't it? Pretty soon there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house. They went back and forth all day and part of the night. Everyone seemed to be very busy and everyone seemed to be in a hurry. All right, I'm going to show you this page. The other pages have just had words, but look, there's the trolley car. You've probably seen trolley cars in San Francisco. And here it is. See, there's another trolley car. It's right in front of the little house. Pretty soon there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The air was filled with dust and smoke, and the noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It seemed about the same all the time. See the trains going around the house? Look how big the trains are. There's all kinds of cars down underneath, and look how big the city is back here. Let's see what happens with the little house. Pretty soon, there was a subway going back and forth underneath the little house. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it, and she could hear it. People were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. They hurried by without a glance. You see underneath? Now, let me move my hand so you can see. See how their people are going down to the subway? They're going up to ride the train. You can see there's the subway underneath. There's the trolley cars, and there's the train on top, and there's some more big city right behind the little house. You can't even hardly see the little house right there in the middle, can you? Pretty soon they tore down the apartment houses and the tenement houses all around the little house, and they started digging big cellars, one on each side. The steam shovels dug down 3 stories on one side and 4 stories on the other side. Pretty soon they started building up. They built up 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other. Look and see if you can even see the little house in the middle of that. Can you see her? She looks sad, doesn't she? There's everything. Look at everything going on around her. Now the little house only saw the sun at noon, and it didn't see the moon or the stars at night at all, because the lights of the city were too bright. She didn't like living in the city. At night, she used to dream of the country and the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty. Her windows were broken and her shutters hung crookedly. She looked shabby, though she was just as good a house as ever underneath. And look, right, see if you see the little house. Look at the little house. She looks so lonely. She looks very lonely. Then one fine morning in spring along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but she didn't hurry by. There was something about this little house that made her stop and look again. She said to her husband, "That little house looks just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house was way out in the country on a hill covered with daisies and apple trees growing all around it." Look and see if you can find the little house now. There it is, hidden. And look at how many people now are on the streets. And there she is. There's the great-great-granddaughter with her family looking at that little house. There we go. They found out it was the very same house. So they went to the movers to see if the little house could be moved. And the movers looked at the little house all over and said, "Sure, this house is as good as ever. She's built so well we could move her anywhere." So they jacked up the little house and they put her on wheels. Traffic was held up for hours as they slowly moved her out of the city. Look at her going. Do you think she's kind of nervous? Do you think she's scared? Do you think she's wondering where they're taking her? Let's see what happens. At first the little house was frightened, but after she got used to it, she rather liked it. They rolled along the big road, then they rolled along the little roads until they were way out in the country. When the little house saw the green grass and heard the birds singing, she didn't feel sad anymore. They went along and along, but they couldn't seem to find just the right place. They tried the little house here, they tried the little house there. Finally, they saw a little hill in the middle of a field and apple trees growing around. There, said the great-great-granddaughter, that's just the place. Yes, it is, said the little house to herself. A cellar was dug on top of the hill, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. So here they are. Look, does that hill look familiar? Let's see what happens. The windows and shutters were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. As the little house settled down on her new foundation, she smiled happily. Once again, she could watch the sun and the moon and the stars. Once again, she could watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. And once again, she was lived in and taken care of. There she is. Do you think she looks happy now? Yeah, I think she looks happy now. She looks very happy now. Never, never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. A new moon was coming up. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. There she is. She looks very happy, doesn't she? And look, she even has a swing in the tree. Well, I hope you like that story, Theo and Charlie. That's one of my favorite stories, The Little House. And I love you and I miss you. Bye.